family, we are so glad that you're here. Would you worship with us? This is the day that you have made. Whatever comes, I won't complain. For all my hope is in your name. Now your joy awaits my praise. I give thanks for all you have done, and I will sing of your mercy and your love. Your love is unfailing. Lord, I am grateful. When I was down, you brought me out. You set my feet on higher ground. So here I stand. You are my God. Your faithfulness, my solid rock. I give thanks for all you have done, and I will sing of your mercy and your love. Your love is unfailing. Lord, I am grateful. I give thanks for all you have done. I won't forget all the battles you have won. Your love is unfailing. Lord, I am grateful. So grateful. And as we lift our hands, the heavens open, heavens open. So let our lives declare the love our God has spoken over us. And as we lift our hands, the heavens open, heavens open. So let our lives declare the love our God has spoken over us. I give thanks for all you have done, and I will sing of your mercy and your love. Your love is unfailing. Lord, I am grateful. I give thanks for all you have done. I won't forget all the battles you have won. Your love is unfailing. Lord, I am grateful. So grateful. So grateful.
Welcome to Church Online at Willamette Christian Church. I am glad that you chose to join us this week. If this is your first time with us, then welcome. Just clicking play is often a huge step, so thank you. If you are looking for another easy way to find out more about who we are as a church, click on the connect link provided, and someone from our fantastic team will reach out to you shortly. For those of you that call WCC your church home, you will have received an email and a video sharing some important changes for our church. If you've not yet received that email, or maybe you haven't heard the news, then I want to share that with you right now, and it comes in two parts. First, WCC's lead pastor, Kevin Weir, has made a hard but courageous decision to step away from ministry in this season to focus on his health and the health of his family. We all know it's been a uniquely challenging season. And for the Ware family, while they love Willamette, it has been challenging to become settled in a year fraught with change and loss. We know that this news for some of you may be surprising and even hard, as transition is always difficult. but you have been nothing but gracious and understanding. In fact, after the email and video went out on Wednesday, we have heard from many of you, and your support and prayers for the Willamette staff and for the Weir family have been deeply felt. You have leaned in to help us continue to be a church that inspires people to know, love, and to follow Jesus. And so thank you. Now, the second part of the announcement is that after prayer and wise discernment, our elders have invited Brian Becker to become the next lead pastor of our Willamette campus. Brian and his wife Jen have, with godly wisdom, graciously accepted that call. I am excited about this. Brian and his family have been connected to Willamette for well over 8 years. Many of you will even remember that a few years ago, Hope City officially became part of our larger church family. So with expectant hearts, we want you to have an opportunity to meet Brian and Jen. So on Thursday, February 11th at 7 p.m., we will host an event for just that purpose. More information is coming on that, so keep an eye out for the invitation so that you can RSVP. And then continue to pray for Willamette and Beaverton and Hope City. These are the 3 campuses that make up our church. Now today, we are wrapping up our series surrounding mental health. Our desire as a team is to see mental health challenges destigmatized and hope that this series has encouraged you, which is why we put together not only the series, but a list of resources on our mental health resources page. You can find a link for that on our homepage, and we trust that these tools will help equip and encourage you. In order to wrap this series up, we've invited our friend and president of Hope International University, Dr. Paul Alexander, to carefully and expertly walk us through the topic of depression. Over the past year, we all, myself included, have experienced depression to varying degrees. This is why on this subject, we wanted to tread wisely and carefully. And Dr. Alexander is just the person to help us do that. He speaks from a unique perspective, not only as a trained counselor, but as someone who's experienced a prolonged season of depression in his own life. This means his empathy for those who struggle with depression or who support friends and loved ones who do informs his speaking and results in an informative message with practical takeaways. In fact, just over a year ago, our staff had the privilege of participating in one of his seminars, and so we are excited that he has agreed to deliver a timely message on this subject. So let's join the band for one more song and then dive into today's message.
The Lord is my shepherd. He brings me to pastures of His grace, leads me to waters, refreshes my soul in His embrace. And I will fear no evil, for I know You are with me. I will fear no evil, Lord, I know You are near. Your goodness and mercy
it's good to see everybody. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I was up in your area about a year ago, right before COVID, and was able to speak at the church to the pastors and got to know many of them, and what a great group. Really looking forward to our time today. It's a serious topic, right? It's a heavy topic. But before we get into some of the heavy stuff, I want to tell you an absolutely true story of the dumbest thing that I've ever done in my life. Now, sometimes speakers exaggerate a little bit. We all know that they do. This is no exaggeration. This is 100% true. 18 years old, I was a freshman in college. I went to a little school back in Tennessee. I grew up in California. I wanted to go away from home for a year. So I'm at a little school in Tennessee. And it's a Friday night, about a month into my college career. I'm watching a young ESPN network, watching Japanese boat racing on a Friday night at 10 p.m. with a guy named Ty, who was from North Carolina. We didn't have any friends. We were just finding something to do. Two older guys come running down into the lobby and they say, "Hey, you two guys want to go caving?" And I said, "What's caving?" He goes, "Caving." And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. He goes, you go into the cave. I thought, oh, okay, caving. I guess so. It's probably better than watching Japanese boat racing. So they go change your clothes, get on jeans and long sleeve shirts, and we're going to go caving. So we come back down 10 minutes later, and Ty and I are now buddies because we're in this together. We go out to the parking lot. Ty and I jump into the back of this old pickup, and these two older guys throw miners' helmets and ropes into the back of the truck with us, and off we go to leave campus. Now, here's the first sign that I probably should have left and just stopped right there and gone back to my room. We're at the stoplight to leave campus. I look over, and Ty is jumping out of the truck and running back to the dorm. First sign I should have turned around. We drive 10, 15 minutes into the middle of nowhere. It's like 11 o'clock at night now. It's pitch black. We go on a short walk through these trees. We get to the cave entrance, and across the cave are boards that say, "Danger, do not enter," and one sign literally said, "Do not go here. People die here." Now, did we stop? Of course not, because we're 18, 20, 21-year-old boys whose brains are not fully developed. So we put on these miner helmets, and the two older guys had miners' helmets that worked perfectly. They turned on the lights, they were bright, they stayed on. My miner helmet turned on and would flicker on and off. I'm not kidding. It's like something out of a cartoon, right? So in we go into the caves. We go through the first cavern, into a smaller cavern, into a smaller cavern. We get 3 or 4 caverns in, and it looks like there's a dead end, but the guys go, "No, we've been here before. This is great. All we have to do is go down to that little hole, and we're going to shimmy through to get into the next area." So I thought, well, I don't know why I thought I should trust these guys. Okay, let's go do this. We get down to the hole, and it is about the size of a small beach ball or a really big basketball, and I was skinny back then, but I'm thinking, I'm not going to be able to fit through that. These guys go through first. Their lights kind of dimmed as they went through, and then it's my turn. I take my helmet off, it's flickering on and off, and I wiggle my way through this tunnel that's about 8 feet long and about 1.5 feet wide, and I wiggle my way through the mud and the muck and the bat guano, because the caves are filled with bats. We finally make it to the other side, and it was harrowing. Now, up to this point in my life, I had never, ever been claustrophobic. But since that moment, I have had bouts of claustrophobia, because for a minute, I thought I was stuck and done. So we keep going through the cave system, and I don't want to exaggerate. I think we went about 1,000 miles. I don't know how far we went. We went for about 45 minutes, maybe an hour. Finally, the guys go, "We need to turn around and go back." And I was like, man, we couldn't get out of there fast enough. So we start heading back. We're going room to room to room, and then we get to this spot that I know that is coming. And I'm dreading it. Here comes this tight spot. The guys go through first. Their lights work great. I go through. Halfway through this little tiny tunnel, my light goes out. So I keep wiggling. I keep winding my way through the tunnel. I come out into the room, and it's pitch black. Not a sound, not a whisper, no breath, nothing, just pitch black. My light is broken. So I say, "Guys," nothing. I wait a couple of seconds. I think they're probably playing a joke on me, right? They couldn't disappear. So, "Guys," After, and I don't want to exaggerate, about 4 hours, no, after probably a minute, finally they turn their lights on and they start laughing, so they think this is hilarious. We work our way out and finally get out back to the truck, and I've never been so relieved in my life to be done with something as I was with that stupid cave. Went back to campus. I went and told Ty he was the smartest guy I'd ever met because he didn't go on the trip, and then I decided not to talk to the other two older guys ever again. It was my one and only first and last time caving. Now, we'll come back to the cave story in a little bit, but it was really one of the dumbest things I've ever done, if not the dumbest. So why am I speaking to you today? I know in the introduction they told you a little bit about my credentials, and I'm a college president. Does that mean that I'm entitled and positioned to talk about depression? Not really. I'm a pastor, so that gives me some credibility, right? I've worked with people and I have pastoral training. I'm a licensed marriage family therapist, and that's certainly credible, right? I have worked with about 6,000 hours worth of therapy hours helping folks. But the real reason that I'm here is because of work that I've been doing the last 2.5 years, speaking around the country to groups of pastors about depression. And it all started because 2.5 years ago, in our area here in Southern California, in a 6-month period, 3 pastors were so depressed that they committed suicide. And the churches and the communities were rocked by these losses. The families, the churches, the other pastors, the community, everybody was rocked by this. And so I've just gone and talked to churches about what it's like, the pressure on people helpers and on pastors, and the challenge that it is to take care of ourselves. And I decided something early on in my talks to pastors. I decided I was going to be honest about the real reason I can talk about depression. It's not my titles and it's not my training. It's because of my own experience. Right after college, I went into a major depression that lasted over 10 months. And for the first and only time in my life, I wasn't sure I wanted to keep going. Everything was going along fine my senior year of college, and then within just a couple of months out of college, I was severely depressed. And I'll tell you more about that at the end of my talk, but I don't understand things just clinically or intellectually. I have lived this, and I've learned a lot about recovery and about managing that melancholy part of our soul, and I want to share from the heart with you for the next few minutes. Now, how many of us struggle with depression? Well, pre-COVID, it was 6% of the US. Very stable statistic for a long time. 6% of US adults experience major depression at some point during each and every year. Since COVID started, that number is almost double. It's over 10%. If you add anxiety disorders on top, we have 6% depressed and 18% of people having one or more anxiety disorders. And to think about that, that's 24%, just over 24%. 1 in 4 of us in America are struggling with depression or anxiety or both. Now, when I say that to pastors, I want to remind them that in their church of 100 or 1,000, every 4th person walking into their church is experiencing depression or anxiety. I was talking to a group of pastors the other day on a Zoom call, and I said, imagine this. Imagine if in your church, every 4th person that came in had a big parrot on their shoulder. And across your whole congregation on a Saturday night or a Sunday or a midweek service, whatever it was, every 4th person had a big parrot on their shoulder. Would you feel differently about the group? Would visitors feel differently about the group? Well, that's a ridiculous idea. It's a ridiculous notion, but that's the truth. 1 in 4 of us are dealing with depression or anxiety or both. What is depression? It is really just profound sadness, tiredness, and a sense of helplessness and hopelessness. We're putting together a video resource after this and be available to you to have some more clinical information and more detailed information, but that's the short answer. Depression is really a sense of sadness, exhaustion, loneliness, and a sense of hopelessness and helplessness. But I want to tell you another story. 2.5 years ago, I experienced the first real 1-2 punch of my life of not just depression, not just anxiety, but a 1-2 punch of kind of both at the same time, both barrels. And I'm being transparent with you because I think it will help if I'm just honest. 2.5 years ago, after 6 years of thinking I was on track to become the president here at Hope, where we're filming today, for 6 years I thought I was heading toward the presidency, and then in a very short period of time, it looked like that opportunity was going to dissolve in front of me. And for 6 years, I had been feeling the Lord's direction and confirmation that that's where I would and could go and how I could serve and how I could serve out the last 10 years or so of my career. And now this thing that I wanted so much looked like it was dissolving in front of me. So one day I said, I have to get out of here. I've got to get up to the Sierras, the Sierra Nevada mountains. So I texted my friend who's a pastor and I said, I'm done, I'm out of here, I've got to get away. I'm anxious, I'm upset, I'm frustrated, I'm depressed. So I went on the 395. Some of you might know that road, beautiful road up to the Sierras. And I sent my friend a picture of one of the snow-covered mountains. It was mid-March. And he fired back to me immediately this passage. After he saw my picture of the mountains, he sent me this message. He said, my dear friend, look at Psalm 121. So here's the verses. You probably know these verses. I will lift up my eyes to the mountains, from where my help comes. My help comes from the Lord. He made heaven, he made earth. He will not allow your foot to slip. Behold, he will help you. He will keep you. He will protect you from all evil. I look to the mountains where my help comes from. So I pulled over. I read it again. I rolled the windows down and let the cold air into my car, and I just looked up at the snow-covered mountains for 10, 15 minutes. And you know what? At the end of that time, I felt no different. I didn't feel any better. I went on and I went fishing for a couple of days, went fly fishing in the snow and had a good time. Thought a lot, prayed a lot. But I got back from that trip and I thought, you know what, I'm going to look up that passage. I want to find out more about it. Didn't help on the trip. It's a pretty passage, right? It's beautiful. So Psalm 121 led me to Psalm 57. And the psalmist talks about being saved in a time of distress. And that leads us to the actual origin of the story, which is 1 Samuel 21 and 22. And in that passage is a story of David as he's being pursued by his, wait for it, future father-in-law who wants to kill David because David's becoming really popular and Saul's had enough. So David did the only thing he could do, and probably the most godly thing he could do. He headed for the hills, literally to hills outside of Jerusalem, and he hid in a cave, the cave of Adullam. Now this story is not well known, but it's a simple story. David flees and he hides in a cave in the mountains where his help comes from for several days. And he's joined by 400 friends. And in Samuel, we read that the friends are broken, destitute, owing people money, and in great distress. So 400 broken people join him in the caves at Adullam. We don't know exactly how long he stayed, but we know there's a hard cut in the narrative, in the story in the Bible, and then he's out of the cave on to do more of the Lord's work. And I thought a lot about this passage of looking to the mountains and realizing that there are times when we get help because we hide, and we get help because we retreat. But that's not what we're called to do. It's not where we're called to stay. One of the problems with depression and anxiety is it paralyzes our will. It wears us down. And our inclination, all of us, when we're depressed and anxious, is to hide, is to bunker down and watch TV and eat, not connect, not reach out, but just to shut down and pull back. All of us. It's a natural reaction. We eat more, we sleep more, we get quiet, we shut down. It's very isolating, it's very lonely. And when we're depressed, we just start shutting down and we just live in that cave. And the longer we're in there, the more comfortable we get. And the more comfortable we get, the longer we want to stay in the cave. You know, when I was depressed, really seriously depressed right after college, I remember thinking, why doesn't God just take this away from me? Right? That was my prayer. God, just deliver me from this depression, this sadness, this heaviness. And God didn't. So I thought about it. Over the years, I've worked with about 300 people suffering with pretty significant depression or anxiety or both, about 300. In all those years, I know one person that has been healed overnight. A pastor in California struggled with severe anxiety and panic attacks, and he believes that he was healed in a moment after several months of struggling with anxiety. The other 250 to 299 folks that I'm familiar with and have worked with personally or professionally have had to enter a season of recovery. 1 in 300 of the people I know have been healed immediately. Everyone else I know has been healed because they enter a season of recovery. So the question is, what does God do? If he doesn't heal us instantly like we want, what does he do? Now I'm going to transition, and I want to give you a caution. I'm going to give you some very simple principles for recovery, and some of you are going to want to dismiss it just because they're simple. My heart's prayer is that you listen carefully and consider what I'm about to say. Recovery for depression has two parts, God's part and our part. So what is God's part? Number one, he has given us Emmanuel. My favorite word for Christmas and the whole year is Emmanuel, the knowledge that God is with me. Number two, in the form of the Holy Spirit. Colossians reminds us that Christ is in us, the hope of glory. Number three, he's given us his word. I don't know if you have certain passages that help you when you're anxious or depressed. For me, it's Psalm 62. If you don't have a favorite psalm to help you when you're bummed out, borrow mine, Psalm 62. The Lord is my rock. He's my fortress. I will hold on to him. Find a passage like that. The fourth thing he has done for us to help us when we're depressed is give us worship. Of all the things that I've listed, the one that has the most sensible, the most palatable, the most dramatic impact on me when I am anxious or depressed is worship. To sing to the Lord, to lift my voice. There's something about what it does for my soul. It cleanses me. It allows me to tear up. It allows me to move forward. There's something about how God wired us that helps lift how we're doing. And the fifth, and maybe the most important one for this message, and what God's part is an invitation. This is a very simple invitation. It comes from Matthew. It's Jesus himself. You know this phrase. As soon as I start this verse, you're going to be able to finish it. Jesus says to us, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." This is a promise. This is a declarative, strong, bold promise from the architect of the universe and the Son that died for us. Come to me, and I will give you rest. What is our part? Our part is to step out of the cave and re-enter life, to take a risk, to take a step forward, to raise our hand and say, I need help. It's a hard thing to do because we're embarrassed. I didn't talk about my depression for almost 30 years to anyone but my family and my closest friends because I was embarrassed. I didn't want to admit that I have a melancholy part of myself and my soul. But so many of us do. What I have learned is that when I am depressed, I need to take steps towards health and wholeness and recovery. I want you to trust the I will. Come to me, you are weary and heavy laden, and I will. Jesus says, I will give you rest. And that has been my experience. When I take a step forward, when I take a step in faith, when I get out of the cave back into life, Jesus does something. Now let me tell you the rest of the story of what happened to me right after college. I had been off the grid for about a month, which is easy to do back then. You could be off the grid easily because it was pre-cell phones. I was in hiding. I was in my cave in my apartment. For where we're filming today, it's about half a mile right behind me. And one summer day in the middle of the afternoon, there was a knock at my door, and I opened it, and there was my friend Carl. And I'll never forget what he said. He said, "Where have you been?" So I let him in, and I told him how everything was awful, how I had no hope. I said, 2 months ago, I was in college. I was a RA in the dorms. I was working in a church, and I had a fiance, and today I have none of that. So I poured out my heart to him for 30 or 40 or 50 minutes. He didn't say anything. And at the end, he did something that changed my life forever. And every time I tell this story, I start choking up. But he did something for me that changed my life forever. He got off his end of the couch. He walked over to me, and my friend Carl reached down and pulled me, not to my feet, he pulled me off the couch onto the floor because I didn't want to stand up. And he stood over me and he said, "We're going out." And I said, because I'm mature, "No, we're not." And he said, "Yes, we are. We're going out." So we had a little staring contest there in the summer of 1984. My depressed self, and here's my good friend trying to help me. He stood over me until I finally blinked first, and I said, "Fine." And he said, "You need to take a shower because you stink," which I did. Now, my friend took me down to Balboa Beach and bought me a nice dinner, and we sat outside on a patio, and we watched cute girls walk by, and we talked about our childhood, and we talked about our memories from growing up together. And the next day, I felt this much better. But I'll tell you what, it was enough. It was enough to begin the process of recovery. The smartest thing I did during that period was let him help me. I needed desperately to get out of my cave. I was stuck. And in my experience, either you're going to be a Paul or you're going to be a Carl, but that's what the body of Christ is for. Please, please trust the Lord when he says, "Come to me and I will give you rest." The church is putting together resources for you to take a step, to move forward, to come out of the cave. I preached a version of this a year ago here at Hope. And one of our staff members' fathers was watching online. And he hadn't told anybody he was depressed. And after the message that night, he gathered his family together and he told them what had been going on. And he said, "You all don't know it, but I've been in a cave the last year, and I want to come out of the cave." Y'all, if you're in a cave, it's time to take a step out. Let the Lord know. Let the church know. Take advantage of the resources that we're putting together for you. Let me close in prayer. Father, thank you for this time. Lord, I pray that your Spirit would move and embolden and loosen the footing for some to be able to take a step toward recovery, to put their pride aside, to put their fear aside, and trust that you will give them relief and hope and help. God, thank you for your Spirit, for your word, and for this community. In Jesus' name, amen.
In the darkest of nights, when the quiet is deafening, in the depths of my pain, when peace is lost, in the lowest of valleys, when fear takes hold of me, you pull me close. You don't waste the heartache, you don't waste the pain, 'cause you see every tear that falls and never look away. You don't waste the waiting, you don't waste the shame. You gather up the pieces and you put them back again. When I lose my way and I have no clarity, when faith has failed and I can't see, when all that I've built comes crashing down on me, you hold me close. day. Through the scars, you make a way. Brick by brick, piece by piece, you're rebuilding all of me. Step by step, day by day. Through the scars, you make a way. Brick by brick, piece by piece, you're rebuilding all of me. Oh, you don't waste the heartache, you don't waste the pain. You see every tear that falls and never look away. You don't waste the waiting, you don't waste the shame. You gather up the pieces and you put them back again. You don't waste the heartache, you don't waste the pain. Oh, you see every tear that falls and never look away. You don't waste the waiting, you don't waste the shame. You gather up the pieces and you put them back again.
Well, Willamette, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you not only enjoyed the worship, but also the informative and inspiring message from Dr. Alexander. You know, in an attempt to help you dive even a little deeper, our very own home community pastor, Megan Lemons, has sat down with Dr. Alexander for a practical Q&A. This is going to be an opportunity for you to watch this on February 18th. So head over to our website right now, register for that event as we as a staff and as a church continue to dive in to this subject. Finally, we are launching a brand new series next week, and you are going to want to invite a friend to it. You're going to join us as we dig into the book of Luke. The account of Jesus' life as recorded by Luke is the most comprehensive and well-sourced account that we have. This means it is not only credible, but also carries an air of certainty. These two things combined make for a book that gives excellent assurance to Jesus being the one who can save us. And I am sure that you would agree with me that we could all use a little more assurance in our crazy world. So join us next week as we begin our journey through the book of Luke. Thanks again for joining us, and keep praying for us as we pray for you.